If young people are to join and then remain in the Army's cadet forces, the quality of the instruction they receive must be of the highest standard. Cadets are bombarded with distractions in everyday life. Therefore, to keep them engaged, the cadet experience must be fun, interesting, and rewarding. A good instructor is one who creates the right conditions for learning and finds ways to inspire and motivate the cadets. The success of each lesson depends on their dedication, imagination, and approach. First aid is a key skill for all cadets and is a fantastic subject for SCIC qualified cadets to teach whilst developing their instructional ability. First aid lessons are relatively easy to organise and resource, as most detachments will have the training material available. By the end of this video, you will understand the mechanics of how to prepare, then deliver a high quality lesson, and will be equipped with a framework which can be applied to other lessons and subjects with the same success. This knowledge will help you in the preparation of your SCIC lessons, and through growing confidence in your own ability, you will develop as an instructor and become even more of an asset to your cadet unit. Rather than just showing you a lesson, this presentation will follow the 5 stages of effective instruction and give you a behind-the-scenes look at how training is prepared. Within your detachment, you will need to ensure you are teaching the right lessons to the right people. To identify the need, we will answer some key questions. What subject needs to be covered? For the purposes of this presentation, the task is to deliver the lesson, types of bleeding and shock. What stage in their training are the students at? We know that this is a basic lesson and the audience are all senior cadets. However, you can't assume prior knowledge or retention of knowledge in a subject, so it must be delivered in a way that is understandable by all. With that in mind, we need to plan the lesson as if the audience have never seen this lesson before. What gaps are in their knowledge? We won't know this until we meet our students. However, don't discount the fact that some cadets may already have experience in organisations like St John's Ambulance or the Red Cross. This is something you might have the chance to ask about while planning the lesson. If not, you should certainly factor in a question early on, as individuals' knowledge and experience can be useful within skills lessons. Who are we training? This information will have implications regarding the maturity of the group and how much information they can be expected to take in, as well as flag up any potential discipline issues that may impact on the delivery. How competent are the students? It's especially important to get this right in advanced lessons. Progression to further lessons is difficult if the students haven't grasped information previously taught. Therefore, revision will allow you time to confirm current knowledge. Why are we teaching this lesson? It's important to know why you've been asked to teach a lesson. If it's a simple back pocket lesson for a range day, although you still need to prepare it, it may not take as long as for a lesson that's part of your preparation for a test or a competition. Now we've identified the need, we can get on with the important task of planning and preparation. Prior planning and preparation prevents poor performance is an old saying that is still as relevant today as the day it was first uttered, probably by an unfortunate soldier whose chain of command had failed to take the advice. The following steps should be followed to plan and prepare a high quality lesson. Consider the audience. Set a clear aim or objective. Plan the lesson, including assessment of the students. Prepare the lesson fully. We will now look at each in detail. We've touched on how we consider the audience during stage 1. However, now we need to look at other factors, such as their age, therefore maturity, how many there are, what do they need or want to get from the lesson, what can they do already. There are lots more factors which are listed in paragraph 18 of the CFIT handbook. When preparing to teach cadets in your detachment, ask for advice if unsure how to deal with certain characters or characteristics. Although we have included first aid as a subject for this course, only those with the right qualification are able to teach this within the Army Cadet Forces. Once you have identified the lesson you need to teach within the correct cadet training syllabus, rather than finding information within iSpec or LSpec as we would for other lessons, you should go to the St John's Ambulance website. Here you will find plans for first aid lessons. As this course is designed by an outside organisation, these are to be followed by all instructors so that training is consistent. However, it is still useful to create your own lesson plan, as the act of writing the plan out helps with the process of learning the lesson, and there are many other factors you need to plan for. Before beginning to plan or prepare, you must be clear in your mind what it is you want the cadets to achieve in the lesson. To do this, ensure you have simple, clear, measurable and achievable aims or a series of objectives based on what each of the cadets will have achieved or understood by the end of the lesson. As you can see, these are shown at the start of the document. As it's important to include the reason why the cadets should learn the subject, as well as an incentive to do well, the aim in this case could sound like this. By the end of this lesson, you will understand and know how to minimise the risk of cross-infection, recognise and respond appropriately to different types of bleeding, including dealing with an embedded object in a wound or an amputation, check for further injuries, and have an awareness of the signs and symptoms of internal bleeding. You will also be able to recognise and understand the effects of shock and be able to respond appropriately in order to treat a casualty quickly and safely. This will enable you to administer effective first aid that could quite simply save a life. Successful completion of your 2-star first aid will allow you to continue your progression towards the emergency first aid at work qualification. The next step will result in the production of the lesson plan. As we have discussed already, although there is a St John's Ambulance first aid lesson plan, creating your own will ensure that all aspects of your plan are covered. A template for this can be found at Annex A of the CFIT manual. To plan the lesson, we will need to confirm the content, and this is best done by getting the information straight into the relevant areas of the template in draft format. How you fill it out is optional. However, getting the aim and the main body onto your lesson plan as soon as possible is advisable, as the rest of information will come as you go through the process. Note now that we plan to check very early on if there's any prior knowledge of first aid. This could prove useful, especially if lots of young people may have completed DFE expeditions and may already be competent first aiders or have attended other youth organisations such as St John's Ambulance. You will notice also that the lesson plan is broken down into columns. These are useful when planning your lesson timings and to give opportunities for feedback from the students, or just reminders to jog your memory during rehearsals. The summary should state what the students have learned during the lesson and give reminders of what was discussed. At no time should the summary include new information that was not taught in the lesson. A summary often links into the look forward, which for this lesson, although separated on the lesson plan, could look something like this. Planning the use of effective delivery methods will help ensure you maintain the cadets' interest in the subject being taught. A good combination of methods will enhance the subject matter and keep students engaged. During this lesson, we will use group discussion, explanation by the instructor, and confirmation by effective questioning, as well as practical activity in the form of EDIP, which is great for maintaining interest. And by finishing the lesson with more discussion, we can ensure the lesson close down will be smooth, as all the training aids will already have been placed away. With the main body complete, the rest of the lesson plan is now completed by considering the remainder of the planning factors. Although you may not need assistance to teach a lesson, the right person watching could give you valuable feedback regarding your delivery. Finally, the methods you intend to use to conduct assessment and evaluation should be considered, remembering that assessment will have occurred throughout the lesson. We have now completed the planning phase of the process. To ensure success, you must spend time in the preparation of your lessons. This should include ensuring your own knowledge and skills are comprehensive, up to date, and rehearsed. Check you have all instructional materials or training aids that you need and that they're up to date and fully serviceable. If you are using PowerPoint slides, check the slides work on the computer and the presentation displays effectively through the projector you're using by rehearsing the whole presentation. Prepare the training environment and ensure it is correctly risk assessed and safe before use. Rehearse any action safety plans that you may have in place to mitigate risks. Finally, ensure there are no distractions that will affect your lesson, including your own mannerisms, which can be trained out through rigorous and thorough rehearsals. More detail regarding the preparation phase can be found at paragraph 21 of the CFIT manual. Now our preparation is complete. After full rehearsals, we are ready to deliver the lesson. No one can expect to be a fully competent instructor the very first time they stand up in front of cadets. By seeking the support of one or more good instructors, especially when rehearsing new lessons, you will be able to coach out bad habits before they have an impact on your lessons. Paragraph 23 of the CFIT manual has some great information about instructional techniques, although feedback from a suitably qualified instructor is invaluable. If you rehearse every lesson fully before each delivery, your ability as an instructor will develop quickly. If we get the start of the lesson right, the rest will follow, and it is for this reason we cover preliminaries, or prelims, so we can set the conditions for success. On the lesson plan in the CFIT manual, the headings of the introduction spell the mnemonic priors. Another way to remember the prelims is the mnemonic CNN Fari. This reminds us of the following sequence. Check kit, to ensure that students have all the equipment necessary for the lesson. If they don't, solve the problem now rather than stopping mid-flow later. The best way to show someone how to dress a wound is by getting your students to work in pairs. However, due to the restrictions, either through lack of contact or just not having students available, it may not be possible to facilitate this. To overcome the problem, your students can use any large towel rolled up to simulate an arm or leg. Before you start the process of EDIP, depending on the subject being taught, they may need to mark the area of the wound. Advise them to get permission before marking clothes, or draw a wound on a piece of paper, then tape it onto the simulated limb. Numbering off is used as an energizer to make sure the students are alert, but it is also useful when the lesson has a teamwork aspect. Normal safety precautions are carried out as soon as possible. However, if there are no weapons involved, this part is not always required. You could also mention any safety aspects to do with the location or lesson here, such as hazards related to the casualty simulation blood, if being used. Students are often required to change location or formations to observe the lesson. This is practiced here to make the lesson run smoother and is also another form of energizer. Anything else covers the miscellaneous points, such as fire exits or muster locations if they haven't already been covered, do's and don'ts, note-taking and question policy, mobile phones and anything else required to get the students ready. For this lesson, it would be a good time to tell the students to ensure their training aid, i.e. practice arm or leg, was prepared. Revision is a great way to get the students' minds working and is conducted here just before launching into the introduction. The introduction itself may consist of a short scene-setting story or a fact relating to the subject. It will always include the aim and the reason why the subject is taught, along with an incentive which will promote the desire to learn within the students.
Hello everyone, I'm Sam McFarlane and I'm going to be conducting your first aid lesson today, which is bleeding, the treatment of bleeding and the recognition of bleeding. Check now in front of you that you have safety gloves, pin, dressing and bandage, as these will become apparent later on in the lesson, especially when we come into the practical aspect. Okay, during this lesson what I want to do is just take your headdress off so that we can be nice and comfortable. Also ensure that you have a notebook and pencil because you will require it during the lesson at certain points. During this lesson we normally actually go into numbering off, and the reason I number off is because I like to use classroom participation. What we do there is we number off in pairs so that one will become the assessor and one will become the practical student. This is also used in the confirmation phase during the lesson, that I know that you understand what we're dealing with. During this lesson we're going to be using latex gloves, and we could also use plasters at some stage during a first aid lesson. So you must ensure that the safety aspects are adhered to, and that is there somebody got allergies, and you may be allergic to those pieces of equipment. If that is the case, then we can't use it. During today's lessons, we're going to be using certain formations. The theory lessons will be done where you're seated now. The remainder of it will be done on the floor, whereas what I want to happen then is you adopt a semicircle around my teaching position. We're not going to practice that now because it's quite simple, and I'm sure you can all adopt a half-clock shaped position. During this lesson, if there was going to be a fire, then you will know where to exit the building that you're in. Ensure that there's no mobile phones that are on, and there's no further distractions during the lesson. In the last lesson, what we covered was the composition of blood. During that lesson, I actually stated that the average adult contained how many pints of blood? Bill?
10.
Excellent, well done, Bill. We also discussed the weight of the body. Now, every 13 kilograms describes 1 litre of blood. Think now and be prepared to answer me when asked how many litres of blood is in your body. Bill?
8 litres.
Excellent, well done. Now then, once when I was coming down from Scotland, I was travelling down the A1 motorway when a car came spinning across in front of us, tumbled and went into a ditch. I quickly had to put a handbrake on, get out of my car and go and assist these 2 casualties. At the immediate second I was running down that embankment, I seen the casualty climbing out and I thought, well, he's not too bad. I then went into the vehicle to assist the casualty that hadn't moved. During that time, I noticed that the casualty was bleeding heavily, so I had to give first aid to the casualty to ensure that we saved her life. We in the Cadet Force learn these techniques by carrying out first aid training. So by the end of today, you will be able to identify bleeding, recognition and the treatment of bleeding. So it's very important for you to take as much information from this lesson as possible so that you can save a life. And on completion of all your first aid lessons, you will be able to move on to your 3-star syllabus.
The CFIT handbook lists lots of techniques and information for delivering effective lessons. However, embodying the mnemonic craved gives any instructor a firm base of characteristics on which to develop. Confidence in ability and subject matter will inspire the audience to learn. Rapport with your audience will create a positive environment. Use humour sparingly for it to be effective. Attitude is important when delivering information. If you make it sound interesting and important, you will hold the attention of your audience. Variety breaks up difficult subject matter and increases the use of the senses. And enthusiasm for the subject will be infectious. Distractions such as mannerisms are harder to spot than classics such as noisy workers or open windows. Ask a fellow instructor to give you constructive feedback if this is something you're aware of. The delivery of factual information should be in short bursts, with regular confirmation by questions allowing for class feedback. The onset of restrictions has led to an increase in online learning, and the use of polls and the chat box are great ways to ensure maximum activity whilst delivering dry subject matter. More traditionally, the 4 Ps method has become the favourite with instructors. Posing the question, pausing allowing all to think before picking a student to give an answer. The final P could be praise for a correct answer or positive encouragement before passing the question on to another student in the case of a wrong answer. When teaching face-to-face, masking movement is a skill which can be learned with practice. Telling the group to write things down is a simple method of getting the class to look away while you move freely. Rules such as reveal, teach, remove, or display, discuss, discard are useful when showing multiple training aids within lessons. The use of EDIP is a cornerstone of instruction within the cadet forces, and indeed the military. The breaking down of complex drills into smaller chunks, then gradually joining them together through repetition, is a proven technique. When using this, we explain the actions, then demonstrate them before the students imitate, then repeat through controlled practice, which they are taught through with 100% control, decreasing through 50% until finally they're able to complete the activity without reminders. The video you're about to see will show different aspects of the lesson. During the EDIP phase, notice that while explaining, the hands are still, and while demonstrating, there is no speech.
There are 6 types of bleeding. I'm going to break that down into 2 parts. The first form of bleeding is a contusion. A contusion is what happens when you get a direct blow to the body. In this instance here, you can see there's a bruise on the leg. That has happened either through a rugby ball, cricket ball or hockey stick hitting the leg directly. This is what causes the bruising. Any questions there? The second one we can see is an incision. An incision. The third one is an abrasion. This is what we can also call a graze. Now this is most common, especially whilst we're running around playgrounds, playing football and concrete, etc., when you've fallen over and you've grazed your leg, knee or shin. Right then, so we've just seen 3 types of bleeding. What we need to do now is just confirm that you've actually taken in what has been said. Okay, I'll hold a card up, and what I want you to do is tell me what you think the answer is. This one. Bill.
Is that an abrasion?
Good answer, mate. We'll come back to that one later on. However, Stephen, help him out. You'll notice there that Bill got the answer slightly wrong. However, it was a correct answer and he should be praised for having the correct knowledge that has been given in that lesson. However, we wanted to get the correct answer there, so I passed it on to another student who gave us the correct answer. This then tells me that the lesson has been confirmed so far and I can move on to the next part within that segment. What we're going to go on with now is the treatment of bleeding. Now then, during first aid lessons, sometimes it is not practical to do the EDIP. And what we have to do is do the complete demonstration because you can't get the students up, down, whilst you're doing certain parts of the practical demonstration. So for the purposes of this lesson, I will do explanation demonstration and then controlled imitation and practice thereafter. So the first thing I'm going to do is I need to put my PPE on, and that's get my gloves onto my hands. I'm then going to have to locate the wound and then expose the wound by using scissors so that I can get the dressing as close to the wound as possible. That way we're going to get a perfect seal. Watch. Okay mate, you alright? Yeah, that's fine. I'm just going to cut your trousers just so I can see the wound. Okay, don't worry, I'm not going to nick you out. The next thing we'll have to do with the casualty is get direct pressure onto the wound. You can use your fingers or palm of the hand initially to start stemming the blood. We then need to elevate the wound by using a piece of equipment or your own leg where necessary. We then need to get the bandage onto that wound as quickly as possible so as we start getting a clot. Watch. You notice there that I broke it down the stages into 3 parts. The reason we do that is so that we can digest the information quickly and accurately and then confirm that the students understand exactly what they need to do at any specific time. Once the explanation demonstration phase is complete, the students will then go into controlled practice, and this is where we'll practice the imitation and practice parts of the EDIP. We'll start off with 100% imitation using the 3 parts. Once this part is done, we then bring it all together and move to a final practice at the end.
Whilst we've been carrying out assessment in small chunks throughout the lesson, it is during the end of lesson drills, through final questions and practice, that we must assess the effectiveness of our instruction. If many students fail to comprehend the same aspects of the lesson, the instructor will know they have not delivered the subject matter adequately. Questions from and to the group offer the chance to confirm knowledge-based learning, while the final practice, which could be in the form of a competition to create excitement, shows how well skills have been learned. Kit is then to be packed away as required, and if necessary, NSPs are to be carried out. A summary of what students have learned should be delivered, linking back to the original aim, and finally, you should give the students a look forward to the next lesson on the same subject. As soon as possible after the lesson is finished, you should conduct evaluation. Ask yourself, did you achieve your objectives? If not, what do you need to do to make improvements? What aspects went well? And what could be improved even more? You can identify the answers through informal questioning of the students, using the results of your assessment of learning, running through the lesson in your head, or asking your assistant for constructive feedback, and many more sources that are listed in paragraph 30 of the CFIT handbook. You have now seen what is required in order to follow the 5 stages of effective instruction. and hopefully you feel enlightened, enthused, and ready to begin preparing your own instructional period. Remember, if in doubt, read the handbook and your notes, then ask for help.